Record show at 6 o'clock. Call meeting to order. Laura, will you do the roll call, please?
Jim Whitaker. Linda Barnhart.
Present.
Eric Goff.
Here.
Anna Norton.
Present.
Tim Lewis.
Present.
Daniel Gant. Michael Bush.
Here.
Ronald Truitt.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum this evening. Anybody sign up to speak under the Sunshine Law? No? Okay. Let the record show that there's no one to speak under the Sunshine Law. Approval of the meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Truitt, to approve the meeting minutes as submitted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we have one public hearing this evening, and that is Rickman Properties. Huh?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, went right past that. How about the approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Truitt, to approve the agenda. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, now we have one public hearing.
Good evening. Project the Rickman property, file number 2410-326. The developer is Dale and Teresa Rickman Investments. The engineer is Morris and Ritchie Associates. It's in the Falling Waters District, map 15, parcel 25.9. This property is located on the west side of Little Georgetown Road, West Virginia Route 2, approximately 1,000 feet south of the intersection with McCoy's Ferry Road, West Virginia 2/4. Developer is proposing a campground, 3 sites on 1.77 acres to be served by private well and septic. The developer is requesting a waiver to the following campground requirements: comfort station of at least 1 water closet and urinal for males, 2 water closets for females, and 1 sink and 1 shower per sex. Section 1101.5. Screening shall be provided within a 25-foot buffer area along the perimeter of the campground. Section 1105.2. Structures shall not be located within 50 foot of an exterior property line. Section 1105.4. Staff recommendation: the structures shown on the concept plan were constructed without building permits or an approved site plan. Each unit has a bathroom, so water closets, sinks, and showers would not be necessary. The only concern would be the utility building's proximity to the back property line and encroachment into the 25-foot buffer area. That being said, this site backs up to 167 acres of undeveloped land, so homeowners would not be directly impacted by the encroachment. Given the information provided, staff recommends approval of all 3 waivers contingent on the following: the developer provides a 50-foot right-of-way and from Little Georgetown Road back to the structures. All structures are brought into compliance with the adopted IBC IRC building codes.
Do we have anyone to represent the project?
Good evening. Todd Heck with Morris, Ritchie & Associates.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Opportunity to make your questions or comments known.
If there is no one, I move to close public hearing.
Second.
Let the record show that there's no one to speak from the public. A motion, Mr. Goff, second by Mr. Truitt, to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Planning Commission members, do you have questions of the staff or of Mr. Eck?
Yes, ma'am.
So, one question I do have, Madam President. Doug, are we also going to move the utility building into compliance off the back line? Your recommendations talk about a right-of-way and bring all the structures into compliant code, but earlier you mentioned the utility buildings close intrudes the 25-foot boundary.
I don't know if that's on a fixed foundation. Not on a fixed foundation, it's like a shed. And that could be big.
There's 167 acres of raw land behind it. That's why we didn't really recommend moving the building, but could be moved, then that would be best case scenario, but there's nothing behind that building for acres.
What that structure's for, I spoke to the owner and he couldn't be here tonight. That's where he's got a well. And that's where the water comes into, to where he's gonna have water treatment, like water softener in there. So that it serves, water lines serve each one of these cabins. So the intention is for him to have a water treatment. It's like a 12 by 12 shed that you get at Lowe's, basically.
Yeah, I struggle since he didn't comply with anything else that, since we're making him do a roadway and get it all in compliance at once.
Yeah, the only question I would have is in terms of the 50-foot right of way. Use of this thing is campground, but it's specifically for his personal use, family use. He's not renting out campsites to individuals. So if we needed an access in there, could we do a 25-foot access easement opposed to a right of way? Would be my question.
The reason we brought up the right of way is because there's 3 structures back there. IT and 911 will make him that road.
Address it.
So we would prefer it to be a right of way.
It's more than 400 feet. You can really call it a flag lot and get 25-foot. And to be honest with you, I just see these as being commercial. I'm just being 100%.
Well, yeah, I don't understand here. It says the structures have to come in compliance with the building codes, but then we're calling it a campground. So what is it? Is it a campground? Is it mobile camp sites or?
So they're essentially like sheds, if you will, that are outfitted with restrooms and living quarters.
That sounds like a lovely place to go.
So
The
are they
camp-
mobile?
The campground section of the ordinance is the only thing that we can really use to apply to this situation because it's not subdivided, it won't be subdivided, and
How do you
you
know?
can't have 3 dwellings on one parcel without it being
Subdivided.
technically like a campground area.
How do you know it won't be subdivided? That's my
Well, that
question
would have
to
to come back in front of this body to be subdivided.
They haven't
Yeah,
proposed it
that's-
to be subdivided. And
today.
Yeah, but they would still have
But
to
that's
come
where-
back through.
That's kind of where the right of way went. That's kind of where a lot of this conversation with Laura and I went. Because, I mean, I'll just being honest with you, looking down the road, I just see this being a rent out at some point, and then we're left with the mess.
Yep.
That's
I
one
agree.
reason why we wanted the right of way and a roadway back there. So
Oh.
it was all,
Yeah.
There's
if
nothing-
we want to do it, then we're not far out of compliance.
There's nothing
See what I'm
stopping
saying?
him from renting these out as Airbnbs and like campsites, so that's kind of the angle that we took, because you gotta understand, this was kind of given to us, it wasn't it was already
Right.
done.
Yeah.
So we tried to go the best route, given the ordinance and given what's there and knowing that it's not permanent dwellings, like you're not gonna have families living in it, full time, but it could be a Airbnb, it could be for when his family comes into town, and a campsite, that's the section of the ordinance that best applies to the situation. That's how we kind of went with it. It's not an actual neighborhood.
Yeah, and we said, yeah, I met on it. And
Yeah,
we
we've talked.
we all came to the conclusion that was probably the best, by definition, that was probably the best route to go.
Yeah, it
It's
made
the
the
only
most
way that
sense.
keeps you from having to tear the buildings down right now. they were done without a permit, they aren't compliant, we know that.
What does the property owner have in mind to bring the structures into compliance with the building code? Do you know that?
I don't, I mean, he's gonna have to take that up with the engineering department and permitting department. And I'm assuming he'll have to get an inspection so they can come out and say, here's what's not in compliant, and here's what you need to fix. I'm not a building code guy.
Oh, yeah, Brian and I met with him when this first came to light, and Brian was pretty adamant that he would need an engineer to go in and see what needs to be done to bring it into compliance, but he said he would go out and take a look at the structures. There was already an inspector out there before, so we have a little bit of an idea what needs to be done, but there's gonna have to be a full walkthrough and list
You'll
and
have to
everything
come in
done.
and apply for 3 building permits, and open them up, and then start the process.
But they can't do that until,
Right. Well, I just am wondering if, we grant these 2 waivers here, if, since he kind of ignored a building permit to start with, or any kind of planning commission regulations, whether if he thinks that we do this tonight, that he's got free reign to do whatever he wants to do. I mean,
We've still got the rest of the process to go through. We've got a sketch plan
okay,
that we have submitted and staff has commented on.
okay, okay.
Once we get past these waivers, then we'll address the comments per the waivers and go through the sketch plan. And then beyond that, you'll have the site plan process to follow.
So you're just looking for a granting of 1, 2, and 3 waivers?
Right, but it's conditional on those other items being addressed. Frankly, I mean, the building inspection part of it is.
that's gonna be the worst part for them, is trying to figure out what needs to be done. This is minute compared to that. So we know that he's got other hurdles to jump, and it's gonna be a long process, but given all of our conversations with it,
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura and Doug, but I mean, really, this is to just get him in compliance and be able to get to the point to where you can get to the building code issue and to leave the structures where they sit today. If they come out there and there's some building code issue that says, the way you've got this set up, then he's gonna have to correct that.
Right. I mean, I would say, that's probably the critical path for us. So after tonight, getting that process started so he understands what that cash outlay is.
Well, I just want to get this all out in our public meeting so that no one goes away thinking that, hey, I've got carte blanche to do whatever it is I thought I was going to do.
I
And
think our approval would hinge on whether or not these building inspectors.
yeah,
Right?
I don't know how that's gonna look, because normally we can't issue building permits without having an approved site plan, but I think that this waiver or the planning commission's approval for a preliminary plan or contingency approval for a preliminary plan down the road, or that would be able to help us out. But yeah, I mean, I would think that the developer would want to do a walkthrough with the building inspector and code enforcer first, to try to get an idea as to what's going to happen, and that's completely up to him. But yeah, I mean, we don't allow building permits to be pulled without an approval from the planning commission, so we'll have to figure out how that looks. But,
Yeah, and honestly, I think, he got a permit to put in a drain field and to drill a well. And when he got those permits, in his mind, he didn't realize that he needed to go through this other process,
got caught, didn't it?
pretty much.
Yeah.
So at that point, then he's, I got a phone call. So
You got a phone call?
I got a phone call. From
Oh,
him
you
that
got a
says,
phone
"Hey, I
call
need
from
some
him.
help."
I'm sorry.
after he got a phone call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lucky you.
Well, somebody's got to help the
Yeah.
guy out.
So the
Okay.
50-foot right-of-way, I mean, you said that you thought that was too much, but Doug and them are pretty adamant that for,
I mean, my personal opinion is if the concern is that he's gonna rent these things out at some time, he's telling me he's not, it's for personal use and family. But I mean, if that's
I
what
think,
it-
in my own personal opinion, I'd rather see it be addressed today and then to have an issue down the road where he starts on that and we don't have
Yeah.
ingress and egress.
Well, I mean, certainly on the recommendations, I just raised the question,
Okay.
you know.
I don't like the idea of having a named road on an access easement. We've run into issues in the past where
Yeah.
that's caused some problems, and I think having a dedicated right of way isn't really that big of a deal. He can dedicate the right of way, he won't pay taxes on that right of way, and then the road will be within there. And we're not talking about paving a 50-foot wide road, you know, do a detail to be, what, 20 foot, 22 feet
We
wide?
could do on one side.
But I think at a minimum, that is sufficient, given that it's gonna have to be a road, you're gonna have traveling back and forth down. I mean, you could sell tomorrow once everything's compliant and someone else could rent it out. So we're, you know, we believe whatever he's telling you, but at the same time, we have to have some forethought about what could happen down the road, and that's kind of
Or
where
he
we're
can
at
sell
with
it
it.
later.
I mean, we have no control because he could, I mean, I was saying the man would, but, you know, let's say he passed away tomorrow, the property gets sold, somebody else comes in and says, hey, I can get these out.
Yeah.
I don't have to call nobody. And now we're back where we started again.
How long is the road in?
More than 400 feet.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know the
It's a long
exact
parcel.
distance. I mean, it's
Because
18
we did look
acres.
at it as a flag lot. I did pull that string and said, well, could it be a flag lot? Well, our codes say that if that flag lot is over 400 feet, you use that 25-foot access.
This is the back corner on the detail. That's just the back corner of the lot. It's pretty far back.
And that was another reason that drove the 50-foot right of way was if it's more than a flag lot stand, we only allow that for 400 feet. So that kind of, there were two reasons that we're driving the 50-foot right of way. A little bit overthinking. There you go. Twice the distance. So,
That's a long
I
way.
mean, it's almost
all three
times.
times,
the
yes.
distance allowable.
I had 6
Type
of
stuff,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there we are. I got that for you.
Planning Commission members, what's your pleasure here?
I'll make a motion that we allow the waiver of 1101.5, 1105.2, and 1105.4 contingent upon a 50-foot right-of-way from Little Georgetown Road back to the structures, and that all structures are brought into compliance with building code.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Bush, to allow the requested waivers with the contingency that the 50-foot right-of-way from Little Georgetown Road, and that all structures are brought into compliance with the building codes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any more questions? Okay. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Okay, you have before you this evening the correction to the subdivision regulations, okay? And the first draft of the comprehensive plan. Laura tells me that there will be a final draft of the comprehensive plan, and at that time, the county commission will hold public hearing.
So let's just talk about the subdivision ordinance right now, because Anthony did correct me on the comprehensive plan, and I can talk about that, but let's just work on the ordinance now, because it's actually two different processes.
Sure.
So we gave you guys the ordinance amendment last meeting. Hopefully you got to take a look. It wasn't too many changes and wasn't crazy stuff, but if you guys have any questions or anything like that, we can talk about it. I think what we were hoping on was getting a recommendation to send it to the county commission so they could set a public hearing for it,
The subdivision.
for the subdivision ordinance amendment.
Okay. Now, they've already had one public hearing, right?
They haven't had any public hearings. They did for the full blunt, for the amendment, or for the ordinance adoption back in August.
Okay,
but
right.
Not for the amendment. They haven't seen the
Right.
amendment yet
Okay,
because
okay.
we haven't
All right,
gotten your approval.
Okay.
But that's where we're at with that. I didn't know if you guys have any questions or anything like that we can help with.
Remind me where these changes, some of them are clerical in nature.
Most.
Some of them were just, they were edits. when we were finalizing the ordinance, quite frankly, we moved Appendix D, Appendix A, which is the section, decided very late in the game, at the very last minute, do away with Appendix A and put it all in the ordinance. We did that. Then it was decided, nah, don't do it, put it back. Well, when we were undoing those changes to put it back in Appendix A, some things got missed.
And there were multiple
And
copies
that's,
of,
nothing in there wasn't in the original drafts. There's nothing that's been created. It was literally just when Jeff and I moved it, and then it got moved back. There was some things in there that literally, we don't know what happened, they just went through. And we
But
didn't know about it till.
You gotta watch
Laura found
that,
it.
you gotta watch that cut
well,
and
this
paste.
has been like
That
a
cut and
living
paste gives you all
document
the
since I
time.
started here, and even before that, they were working on the ordinance. So you're talking about multiple different revisions, multiple different people giving revisions, and some of the things were just accepted or deleted and vice versa. And I think our brains were kind of mush by the end of it, so we didn't catch a few things. And
So is it fair to say that there are no substantive changes in these amendments that were not part of the roundtables?
That's correct. All of this was
And the
in
draft.
earlier versions.
Mhm.
The appendix say that we had all the big roundtable meetings with the developers. All of it was there.
the versions kind of got mushed together when we were copy and pasting. Finalizing
And-
the draft.
And the revisions are what are highlighted in red, correct?
I don't have a copy, but yeah,
Okay.
the changes, would be
Anything in-
whatever is striked out, and then our
Anything,
comments on the
anything
side.
in red is what you've changed it to.
Correct.
Okay.
And a lot of the changes are just like things that we were playing around with, but then didn't revert them back to what they are now or what we intended. Especially with like lot sizes, lot widths, setbacks, stuff like that. And that's something that I think that we'll plan on like looking at down the road. This ordinance was really just to get us to a starting point to where like the current staff could work off of. So it's definitely our intention to look at those things in a couple of years and do a new revision completely. But right now, if you look, like the minimum lot size for a single family home is 1,200 square feet, and that's smaller than our townhome lot size. So we just got to get that cleaned up. Keep anything coming in that could potentially
Okay, and
Be
this was
harmful.
presented at the last meeting.
correct.
Okay, so what we need then is, have you looked at it, and are you ready to recommend that it go to the county commission for them to consider and hold public hearing on?
So I just have a question, and it's not, I've read through these things by half a dozen times. Really no question. I remember when we sat down with the builders and went through all this stuff that it was there. But on the second page, number 7, I've read this like half a dozen times. I'm like, driveways intersecting with a West Virginia Department of Highway roadway shall have a paved surface, asphalt/concrete. So are we telling a homeowner they have to pave their driveway?
No,
No.
what I'm saying. In the past, we were asked to, what by DOH. One, this was something that got held over from the previous. I kept. I thought it was a good thing. It was a good maintenance item. What we're telling them is, you don't have to pave your driveway, a resident. However, if you were out on 5 acres on Nightown Road, let's say, want to build a house and put a driveway in, at least the apron from the edge of asphalt of Nightown back to your right-of-way line must be paved. The reason being is, a lot of the roads that aren't that way, that have gravel up to it, are deteriorating state
Faster.
roadways severely. You're dragging gravel out on it, it becomes a hazard. It becomes, you're actually deteriorating the roadway, causing DOH to go out and have to fill or cut and patch and fix the rattling. the drainage under the pavement goes away.
It is a requirement of their entrance permit as well. It's just capturing the detail on the
It's
plans.
just
But it's
standard.
already a
Just look
requirement by
at,
DOH.
just go down Route 9 right across from the new Dollar General store where it
It
rains.
doesn't get picked
That
up
road,
when
Commercial
they
that,
entrances
construct
that are
their
valid,
entrance.
if
DOH
you
doesn't
just
enforce
switch
it.
damage. It's not just the
Yeah.
residents,
Okay.
but just asking them to pave the apron.
apron, yeah, that's it.
That's all we're asking, is
Yeah.
to bring it back to the right-of-way line, which is no more, most of the time, than 20, if it's a 25-foot offset, the road's 20 feet wide, it's 10 feet, talking 15 foot. That's it.
Okay.
15
That's
foot and
reasonable.
10 feet wide. It's literally nothing.
Thanks. So I'm ready to make a motion that we
Okay.
send this to county council for review and to have public hearing.
Second.
Anytime.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Goff, to send the revision to the subdivision regulations off to the county commission for review and suggestion that they adopt it. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
You know where else, you know the road I was talking about, Doug, on Route 9 right across from the new Dollar General store?
Oh, okay, I kind of know.
That, every time it rains, that dirt and rocks wash right out.
It'll do the same, it'll help us some of that. It also to find the entrances, some people, like a lot of the commercial places, their whole property is their driveway entrance alone.
Yeah,
You know, and what we're trying to do is to find that down.
absolutely. I agree.
So with the comp plan update, I was incorrect. Anthony explained that the process for that is a little bit different than the ordinance update. We actually have to have a public hearing ourselves. So there's a 30-day public hearing. So you guys have the comp plan. We printed it out for you because it's rather large. I think I explained it before, but I'll explain it again. Legislature passed a law to allow impact fees to be implemented and without zoning, and one of the criteria is to have an updated comprehensive plan every 5 years. As you know, our last comprehensive plan was 2016. So we had kind of been preparing ourselves to go ahead and start working on the update this coming year. With the passing of that law, it kind of got expedited. This update just merely, everything is pretty much the same minus some updates to current ordinances and some language that was put in, talking about the implementation of impact fees and how that would affect Berkeley County. I don't have track changes. The Berkeley group is the third party that worked on the comprehensive plan update. I could ask them if they have track changes for you guys, but merge it, yeah.
It would be helpful if we're going to read it.
Well, if you
Yeah,
put that
I
out
mean-
for the public, doesn't it have to show what's changing?
Technically,
It should be available somewhere. So, if I may, just get everybody up to speed. 2006, the legislature passed the Local Powers Act with the help of legislators from Berkeley and Jefferson County because of that provided various authorities to growth counties. One of the requirements for certain funding mechanisms for infrastructure improvements or for actual public services is an impact fee. For an impact fee, it would be to you had to have zoning. Since we don't, the county commission asked the legislature to take that out. And so now the only thing holding the county commission back from adopting an impact fee ordinance, which is a fee on new development, is the updated comprehensive plan. Because it has to be updated every 5 years for an impact fee, but just every 10 years otherwise. And anytime the legislature gives the county commission or planning commission some authority, they make the whole process different from any other process. So it's different for a zoning ordinance than it is from a subdivision and land development ordinance and from a comprehensive plan. So comprehensive plan, it's already been done, have to do it every 10 years. Now we're going to have to do it every 5. And it's this one, the legislature really puts at the planning commission level, whereas the subdivision ordinance, the county commission could change that without even coming to the planning commission. However, the county commission can draft a letter to the planning commission asking for an update to the comprehensive plan, or the planning commission on its own can make updates to the comprehensive plan. It can do that with third-party contractors, or without. I believe there is a third-party contractor at one point. So the process is essentially, you've got an amendment to the comprehensive plan. You publish 30 days to have a hearing before the planning commission. Planning commission might want to make some changes based on the public's input. Then you make a recommendation to the county commission to adopt it. Then the county commission has its own public hearing. It has to publish notice within 15 days prior to the hearing, and then after that, it can take action. So there's a bunch of hoops to jump through. We want to jump through all of the right hoops because, of course, with a new tax or fee, if something is not done correctly, then it will be challenged. So there has to be a hearing here in 30 days. I think you can probably go ahead and set that today for sometime in January, and then try to get the document out to the public online or something.
Shall we have a special meeting for the public hearing, or would we have it at?
It'd be up to you.
Yeah, so when he told me that it was a 30-day public hearing, if you wanted to make a motion to set the public hearing for 30 days from now, it would actually land on, I think, January 6th, regularly scheduled planning commission.
Do you know what the agenda looks like for January
No
6th?
clue. I don't think there's anything on it right now for January 6th.
Election of a new president.
Yeah.
Good.
And vice president. But we could go ahead, we could certainly do that, and then in the meantime, or even at the next meeting, I can get you guys a tracked changes version.
What about the growth maps?
So, okay, so
Have they been
none of
changed?
that information has been updated yet, because this was a quick expedited update in order to kind of look at impact fees and meet that 5-year requirement. We will be having a full-blown revamp of the comprehensive plan. So they've done a small one where they just updated a few items in this to update it to meet that state code requirement. And then they're going, Berkeley group, when I say the Berkeley group is going to do a full 2025 comprehensive plan.
I'd like to see the changes highlighted so that you
I
don't
can
have to
work
read
on
through the
that.
whole, have to read the whole document.
They should have it, but if not, it's easy to take 2 documents and show the differences in
I
them.
don't know if I have that word.
You should be able to get a track changes stuff.
And I can send it an email, I can make copies for whomever wants it. It doesn't matter, but I can work on that.
Well, I know over the years, reading these things, you don't just sit down and read them completely and understand them. Sometimes you have to put them down, pick them back up, put them down.
Speak for
put them-
yourself.
Huh? I didn't hear what you said.
Said speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, no,
No, I've not sat down and read a complete comprehensive plan in one sitting.
Stay after school.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can work on that. I do think like chapter 1 and chapter 3, maybe chapter 5 was where they did a lot of the just revisions, and most of the language that was just put in there was related to impact fees. Maybe the dates on our adopted ordinances and so on, but
Okay.
they haven't done any new maps. They haven't done any new data collection. We'll obviously have public engagement meetings and more public hearings with the full-blown adoption, but this is just the first step towards the impact fee implementation.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Said another way, the Berkeley group in this first iteration is using 2016 data to bring the current comprehensive plan in compliance with what is required of a comprehensive plan that would support an impact fee.
correct.
Some of the demographic data.
They use some new
Some
data.
things are and some things.
Yeah, they didn't do any new tables or maps or anything with the
Uh-huh.
new data, but they did just pull data from various, and I can get the list of where they pulled data from
But as
for
far as-
population and stuff like that. But
Anything regarding land use, though, growth management, preferences of Berkeley County citizens that are often reiterated in this room.
Roads, like,
And-
it should be more industrial. it should
That has not
be
even been looked at yet.
a dense development area.
And that's all that's going to happen in 2025.
it's going to happen in January as soon as we're going to get the ball rolling as soon as the update is adopted. I'm sure I'll have a meeting the first week of January with the Berkeley group about the process for the full-blown update. But it's going to be a brand new revision. It's not going to look like this.
So, I would like to see track changes,
Okay.
okay? Because I can't read 700 pages. In
You're
saying
gonna
that,
be
I
retired
know,
in
in
another
saying
year.
that,
You retired.
if we set a hearing for the 1st of January, we
That's pretty
really
quick.
don't have time to read through this and ask our own questions. So should we not say, let's get the track changes, talk about it at the second meeting in December, and set the hearing for the second meeting in January?
If you wish, I mean, that's up to you guys. We are on a time crunch here, so the sooner the better for us and for county commission, I believe.
Oh, yeah, but
you
now,
still have to have, if you need the time to look at it, then absolutely. I mean,
how long did it take the county commission to look at the subdivision
Yeah.
regulations?
hey,
I
so I
haven't-
can get you guys the track changes at the next meeting if that's what you wish. And we can do that. And then you can talk about setting the public hearing after that if you want to, but if you want the track changes, then.
I don't have an issue saying, what would that be, January 21st, I guess, would be the second meeting. Going ahead and setting that date, but that's giving us enough time to ask you guys questions, if we have questions, before we bring the public in here, and they start asking questions that we haven't asked.
Second
We've
meeting,
discussed-
January is the 20th.
Well, the
That's a
20th
Monday, that's-
Which is a
President's
holiday.
Day.
King's Day.
It's a holiday.
Huh?
Or
Holiday.
Martin
Yeah,
Luther
so
King.
it's the 21st.
Well, I'm going to Florida for 3 months.
Yeah, he's
Well,
going.
you've got plenty of time
I'll
down
You'll
there.
miss
read
it.
it on the beach.
I mean,
We'll call you,
January,
we'll call you, put you in here.
That's fine, I can do that, I'll do that, I will do that.
What was that first public
I'm the
Well, the
snowbird,
first
I
public
won't
hearing
help.
was just be a public hearing for any questions from the public regarding any of the changes to the comprehensive plan. So if you guys want the track changes, I can either make sure that you guys get them before the next meeting, or we can wait until the next meeting and give you the track changes. It's completely up to you guys. But
Laura, how about if I ask the group here, if you send them out on an email, would everybody be open to look at that on an email and look at the track changes, or would you want to print out?
well, I can print anybody a set with the track changes, and you guys can come in and pick it up. I know Linda's gonna want a paper copy for sure. So I already know I'm gonna print her a paper copy.
Thank
So if anybody else wants a paper copy, then absolutely. But if you're open to that, it's completely up to you guys.
It don't have to be a Dropbox file, but yeah, you can.
Yeah,
do it.
it's got, I
If
figured,
it's a time thing, I'm just really wondering
Whatever
why,
it is, you know, just
why
say you want it.
our comments can't come along with the public comments.
It's up to you guys.
I mean, I would be fine with 30 days, like, because our comments can come in with the public comments. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's not
you'll see
based on
the-
what we say when it comes to that time. It's still going to be a work in progress.
I think you'll see the track changes isn't
Why
anything
not?
monumental. It's more just factual information or data from public entities regarding population and demographics. but I don't think there's been any large substantive changes at all.
Yeah.
But I can certainly do whatever you guys want to do.
Is the Berkeley group going to be here for the public hearing to answer questions, or is you're gonna give the, oh?
No idea. I'd have to get in contact with
Okay.
them. Because like I said, I was under the impression that this process was the same as the ordinance.
Yeah.
But that's my fault. So I can reach out to them. I'm sure they can get someone here for Western Virginia. So
Yeah. I mean, but January, say we did it 30 days from now, January 6th isn't a done deal anyway. I mean, that
January
public
6th public hearing would just be your public hearing that you're required to have, and then
Yeah.
you would make any recommendation that you would have for the public hearing and to the county commission for the next step.
To set forth.
It's up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable with, but
Comfortable with,
It
public
sounds to me
hearing,
like it's not gonna matter,
being able to get through the
you know?
changes?
I don't think it's
So,
that
so,
many
yeah,
changes.
well, another thing I worry
No,
about is
no.
that if we haven't been totally transparent with the public about the changes, in other words, we kind of, and I don't want us to sound this the way it sounds, that we're rushing this, what are they not saying? We hear it enough when these people come here
Yeah, I
and
mean, it's
complain.
totally up to you guys, and I can, like I said, I can work on getting the track changes. I can reach out to Berkeley Group, or like Anthony said, I can merge the two documents. But
Can you just give me the changes and not the whole 500 pages and ream of paper you
well,
got?
I'm gonna have to get the changes from them because I didn't see anything in between.
Yeah.
They worked on it, so they sent me their chapters individually after they rewrote them or rewrote
Hopefully
them.
they have their track change.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
Oh, yeah.
they're gonna
I
have to
just
go
don't see
back.
a
to-
difference.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go
But
page by
Yeah.
page.
That's gonna take a little bit of time.
I don't think 9 people are gonna make a difference.
I don't think my desktop Word has that function, so I may have to get you to do it, but
I can do it.
I got like
But they should
08
have-
Word document.
It has, you could merge it and it shows it works.
Yeah, and then, whenever we start merging stuff, we get this that got
I
left
agree.
out.
It's like, that's difficult.
Yeah,
If I have to go through page by page, I mean, really, the words in the comprehensive plan is the only thing that was ever edited, so it's not that big of a deal. But I can get it to you guys.
I mean, we have the whole thing here. If you told me it's page, 10, 11, 12, 14, that's what I'm gonna look at, 10,
You
11,
just
12,
look at,
14.
this take track changes on note, on
2,
notes.
3, and 2, 3,
So I
and
will
Drop
say,
your
I
note.
think
5. 2, 3, and
It-
5.
all
So
your
just
track
say-
changes
10,
on
11, 12, I don't
notes.
care.
And then you could just take that, what you got here, and read through.
Okay,
through
all right.
the-
Let's
what
make a
we have.
decision
That's
first.
what you can use.
I mean, it all depends on how quick you can get this data back to them, so they have enough time to either do it on the 6th, or they gotta push it to the next meeting. That's what it.
Yeah, you probably want to have whoever recommending.
yeah.
Okay, do we have, you want to put a motion on the floor for that? Or you just want to let Laura kind of have her reign to get the track changes out to us, and then what do you want to do?
Well, I think we have to pick a public hearing date, because we gotta put 30-day notice out there, right?
At some point you do, I mean.
You don't have to set the
Your
public
only
hearing.
requirement, I mean, if the county commission sends a letter to the planning commission requesting a comp plan, you have to have a public hearing within a week. They've never sent a letter, I don't believe. You could always recommend a change to the comprehensive. But there's, I mean, I think the county commission wants it done. I know that the process through, but I don't think it's really been before you guys know. You guys making proposed amendment publicly.
put out.
Sometimes Laura sometimes to get the data in it. And to send out the notice for the 30 days. Gotta have it advertised for 30 days, right? So that gives, if you, what's the second meeting in January?
21st.
So
So
the,
if back that up 30 days, that's when you know that notification's gotta go out. That gives you some time to get this stuff together, then some time to see it before everybody else.
If you have questions,
Correct. That way, any questions you got, as you get them, we can kind of do like we do with the ordinance. Some of you just called me, some of you texted me. We sat down with some of you, we did it like, we just accommodated to explain them, and then it kind of just went from there.
so chapter 5A, with like, it's called the growth management plan, page 17 of that chapter. That page right there is something that was definitely added, especially the last sentence. It says, given the benefits and the county's continued population growth and the increasing strain on public infrastructure and services, it's recommended that Berkeley County, West Virginia adopt impact fees. Doing so would ensure the Berkeley County is prepared to accommodate future development without overburdening its existing residents. So that whole page right there was definitely something that was added. That's one of the bigger changes. Just food for thought.
Question, and perhaps the requisite review hadn't been done, but something that jumps out to me is a question of whether there's anything that will be recommended in the updated comprehensive plan that is inconsistent with the subdivision ordinance that was just passed and will be amended. Something specific that comes out to me is, in one of these looking forward to 2026, is another foreboding warning that if Berkeley County doesn't have some sort of managed growth, and I think it even says if it continued to have scattered growth, that these issues that are pointed out in the comprehensive plan will only get worse. And I look at the subdivision ordinance, and it looks like we're decreasing density of development and not having broad overarching planning goals, but they're more project specific. I guess that's one thing that I would have questions of the Berkeley group as they look at the current comprehensive plan, both for purposes of implementing an impact fee as well as the broad-based where's growth going, where growth should go. I just wonder whether the next iteration of the subdivision ordinance isn't much closer than 2 or 3 years down the line.
It's going to have to be.
It'll
Yeah.
have to be.
We're fairly aware that we're going to have to do some changes based on the next comprehensive plan update, and we're prepared for that. I think getting the ordinance to where it will be with the amendments sets us up pretty well for that, because we won't have to do an overhaul of process and all the things that we did from the 2009 to now. We can focus on actual substance, which will be more than helpful. Because we didn't really get to do that at this time. We were more worried about procedures
more focused on
and process and straightening that out. And closing loopholes, closing waivers, those such things. We've already talked. We know 3-4 years we're going to have to do complete revision to the ordinance.
But depending on where the impact
And we're fine with
fees
that. It
go
just is.
and what the impact fees are for, and then out of the comprehensive plan, it's going to identify that there may be new growth items that we haven't even contemplated yet in the subdivision. And we would have to reach out and develop those regulations or bring that back into the subdivision ordinance to support the plan. Let's just, and I'm not saying this is a true thing, but just take this for example. Let's say that there is, out of the comprehensive plan comes an overwhelming desire by the public to have, say, a continuous bike trail from one end of the county. Okay? That right away should be obtained for that. And through that subdivision process, as those things are done, if they intersect that trail, that's a thing that you would be putting into the subdivision ordinance to try to obtain that right of way for the county. Or let's say there is a new overland roadway to take relief off of Valley, okay? Would want to try to program that into the subdivision ordinance, be able to obtain as much right of way as you can in advance for people that want to do, say, a denser development. The trade-off would be a denser development, you give us the right of way.
And so that could be a challenge to this body. My time on the planning commission is somewhat limited, but, maybe there could be a more intentional effort, not pointing any blame or anything, but I see an opportunity here where the school board comes and says, hey, we are way out of line here. Planning commission, these projects will have such a detrimental impact. We get bits and pieces of school issues, road issues, but I wonder how we can at least annually look at these issues and see whether there's a resounding commonality across the county, and how the subdivision ordinance can be amended to accommodate that. So I just wonder how we can formalize that process instead of airing grievances.
Out of the what I would call the detailed comprehensive plan, the best one. One of the questions that comes up, and Laura and I've said at many of these meetings, and this is a question that always comes up, is about the influx of everybody buying the population in schools. We do know that several of those people have children, okay? They will attend school. But when you talk to the developers and the home builders, the story we get is about half of the people are retired. Okay? So when you bring all those houses in, we're counting every one of those houses, see what I'm saying, having children and being a load on the school. That could be a very, very, very bad assumption. If half of those people are retired, they don't have children.
Well,
It begins to tip the scale as to what school district is getting it right. But if you remember the person that we had here from the Board of Education a year and a half ago, remember?
Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, in his slides that he had, that they used the model from Minnesota that they were claiming was the best model predictor. One of the things in there they were talking about was that whole scenario, and that if they looked at that model, it was the outlying areas. In other words, the city of Martinsburg schools are going to continue to shrink because they aren't having babies here, but they are having babies in Cherokee. That's why the push for the high school was out there.
To that point, though, is that if this body is able to be more responsive to these real-time changes,
Yes.
I could envision an ordinance that is not even blanket across the entire county. Maybe we have overlay districts or some sort of pockets that are having specific responses to specific issues, needs, and desires. And so that may be an aspirational goal.
I mean, for Berkeley County now, all three documents, the stormwater, the subdivision, the comprehensive plan, they all have to be very fluid. I mean, I would see that, I'm telling you right now, next year there will be another stormwater ordinance coming out, mainly to address all the stuff coming down from EPA in the new permit side of it. It's just getting pushed out to us, and there's going to be a lot of requirements on the developers and us.
Based on that, and then based on the new comprehensive plan that will be adopted, then we know we're going to have to do an ordinance overhaul, which, in my opinion, it's best to do an ordinance amendment or update every 5 years based on our other changing ordinances and based on our comprehensive plan, because those two documents shouldn't be isolated, and that's kind of how they have been for the past couple of years. Is they've kind of operated independently of each other, but we really need them to operate together.
Yeah, yes.
So we're already preemptively knowing that this is this is gonna be something new that we deal with, and we're gonna not wait 15 years to update the ordinance ever again. It's gonna be a living document every 5 years or so. We're gonna have to just revise it to go with the flow, and I think that would be the best situation. But we already understand that. We're ready for it.
Your document has to be updated and flow along with your building and your structures and your building that's going on in your county. So, you know, like this, looking down here, for example, and you go population growth here in this document, I look at it and it's 2020, and from 2020 to 2024, we made a major increase on population growth, but that's not in this document here now. So when it comes to
They were trying to.
yeah, when it comes to data, can be a mechanical engineer. There's good data and there's bad data. And I've said that in this meeting before. And collecting stuff and where you want to be exact and where you want to get the flow of, like Mike said earlier, we have pockets and don't have pockets in this county. You don't want to look. You have to look at everything as a whole that intertwines together, but to keep data flowing lively. You can't let it sit on the shelf, because when it does, you're gonna be behind the 8 ball, catching up all the time. You're never gonna be up there, and you're always gonna be behind. And like I said, looking at this document like now, and you want to improve it, but it needs to be updated. So,
Well, they didn't do a full overhaul update. That's what I was explaining. Is this is just a very small update in order to meet that 5-year requirement, and then starting in January, it's going to be completely revised. It is going to have
enough to
updated
satisfy-
2025 data.
So they could begin to have discussions. with impact.
They just need something to start
I got
in
it.
order to start building their
Well,
impact
we
fee
know
ordinance.
we know we
Right.
need a detailed one.
Yeah.
We know it needs to be much more depth and much more broad than what this was. This is a stopgap measure, and that's, I think, don't get lost in all that. This is just a stopgap measure. They still have this full thing to do. And remember, the census only happens every 10 years. And that's where most of this data is going to come from.
I know.
They can't invent the data, and where else do you get the data, and what's the cost of that data? So I mean, there has to be, the census data is every 10 years. You know that.
So this update, this first one, really just
Back started.
to get impact. You just have the same impact document. It would look stupid. But, I mean, so that's all that is. But, I mean, what Mr. Bush was saying is, I mean, this body at any time can, or the subdivision ordinance, and other ways. And one way is to have different sets of rules, even under your subdivision and land development ordinance. You don't have to control the use. Say, okay, well, here along 81, we're going to require things, strict density out. There's all kinds of ways to do it, but here there's always been a blanket approach with discouraging density fall out.
Okay, well, let's look at the track changes and have comments and set a public hearing at our next meeting for sometime in January.
Okay.
Let's look at the track changes first, which we've beat this for, what, half hour, 45 minutes, and I think that's the most important thing for right now is to just get a handle on how extensive those revisions have been. And if they're nothing, then, we can schedule a public hearing right away, but we'll have 30 days that we have to do it. So let's look at the track changes, and then at our next meeting, we'll set a public hearing. Does that
Okay.
sound agreeable?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine.
I don't want to rush anybody into doing something that you don't really have a good opportunity to digest. It's I've seen this many times, and it's I don't want to be slowing things down, but you know, I've preached for 5 or 6 years about getting the subdivision regulations updated. And, you know,
Yeah, so if you guys say you guys do set the public hearing, then you'd be looking at January 1st for that hearing.
probably.
That's
yeah.
30 days from
Yeah.
the 6th.
Or maybe even the first week in February. I wouldn't have a problem with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, either way, I mean, but,
It's
I'll
no-
get those track changes to you guys. I can send it out via email, and then if you want a paper copy, just let me know, Linda. I'll go ahead and
Okay.
print you a paper copy.
I have no real desire to be sitting here, and I don't think you do either, and have the room full of people bitching at you for something that's been changed without you having a full knowledge of why it was changed. That's just no fun. That takes the responsibility. I take it very seriously, and I think everybody else does too. So let's look at the track changes at our next meeting, and then schedule a public hearing. That sound agreeable to everybody?
Agreed, agreed, agreed.
Agreed.
It took a half hour to get that done, right? Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, because he's gonna be gone for 3 months.
Ah, look at
He wants to
that,
go on
yeah.
vacation.
7:01, Mr. Truitt
I'll
wants to
second it.
adjourn. Second by Mr. Goff.
I'll beat you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting adjourned.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
See you, I guess, in